In this video, I'll take you through part 1 of the Meg and Laurie past paper question. We're looking specifically at things like employers' NIC, trading losses, income tax, and thinking about things from a partnership perspective as well, if you need a refresher on those kind of rules. I'm going to show you a key difference between how students approach certain requirements and how I would approach it. As well as talking you through and showing you how I constructed my answer, I'm going to talk you through things like timings, how to plan an answer, and use information given to you in the scenario to help you with your structure. Okay, so we're going to start off by looking at requirement A, part 1, which is a 3-marker, and we're only being asked to calculate in this requirement here. So calculate the available trading loss available to each of Meg and Laurie if Laurie becomes an employee or a partner in the business. So 3 marks, it's not going to take us too long to do. We're only being asked to calculate, therefore there is no marks available for explanations, so we shouldn't waste any of our time with that. Even though it's only for 3 marks, I would still do a little plan at the beginning. Just take a wee minute to pull out the key things in my answer. So it's calculate, that's all I'm being asked to do. I need to consider Meg, Laurie, and I need to consider it as employee, where Laurie's brought on as an employee or as a partner. So I'm considering both Meg and Laurie's perspectives, and I've got to consider the outcome if it's Laurie as an employee versus a partner. So my 3 marks, I can already start to see a bit of a structure and think about how my mark allocation might be split out here. It doesn't really matter which thing you're necessarily starting off with here. What information do we have about the loss? If we go back to our detailed info, Meg, 60, married to Laurie, owns this MT travel business, has rental income of $8,600 each year, as well as profits from the business, makes its accounts the end of March each year. It's got trading profits of $1,600 for the year. It's currently got no employees. Then we've got this paragraph about the future. When Laurie's husband joins the business, it'll either be as a part-time employee or as a partner. We're told how the profits and losses will be shared, and in that next year is expected to make a trading loss of $20,000. So that's where the loss that we're wanting to look at is coming from. It's expected to then become profitable again and be around $30,000 or up to $30,000 a year for the foreseeable future. Okay, so we're being asked, if we go back to the requirement, calculate the allowable trading loss for Meg and Laurie. 1 under Laurie being an employee, 2 under being a partner. So we're going to have a heading where Laurie as an employee, and we're going to want to have a heading where Laurie, oops, if I could type properly that would help, as a partner. So this is going to be my actual answer. You can always delete any plan that you put in there anyway. You can delete a plan before you submit your answer. But I'm going to keep mine here because I want you to be able to reflect back and see how I did my initial read through, what my thought process was, the key things that I'm pulling out. Because do you notice in my plan, I've not written the word loss. You might have looked at that requirement and gone, it's a question about trading losses. I've looked at that question and said, this is a question where I have to calculate, and I've got 2 people's perspectives to look at it from, and I've got 2 scenarios to consider. Because I need to make sure that I'm answering exactly what has been asked. But students will look at this question and say, it's a question about trading losses. But you've got that knowledge. What the problem is sometimes with students with this exam is knowing how to take the knowledge they've got and apply it to the answer to maximise their marks. So that is why I plan the way I do. My plan does not tell me it's a trading loss, because I can look at that and go, it's a trading loss. That's what the question's about. That is the subject matter, if you like. But what's going to get you the pass, what's going to get you the really good answer, is your approach and your understanding of what the marker wants to see in the answer. Okay, so that's why my plan might look a bit different to yours. Okay, so I've done my calculation. Calculate the allowable trading loss to each of Meg and Laurie for the tax year if Laurie becomes an employee. So Laurie as an employee, loss for Meg, because remember Laurie's just an employee in this situation, so Laurie's not going to be able to use a trading loss in any way because it's not Laurie's trading loss, it's the loss of Meg as the owner of the business. So if Laurie's an employee, we start off with the trading loss is expected to be 20,000. Remember, you're going to have to pay the salary to Laurie. We were told it's going to be £12,000. Anytime you're doing one of these calculations where you're considering taking on an employee, remember NIC. There's often going to be marks available, and here we're showing employer NIC as 0 in order to get a half mark. Why? Why is employer NIC going to be 0? Because there are no other employees. This is the only employee that we've got in the business, and it's told us there in the scenario it's got no employees currently. If we bring Laurie in, Laurie's the only employee. Laurie's going to therefore allow the business to get a £5,000 employer allowance against NIC, and also think about the employer's NIC threshold. 9,100 is taxable at 0%, so that covers the whole of the salary amount of 12,000. So there isn't going to be any employer's NIC. But if you don't write that in, you'll miss out on half a mark. So anytime you're doing a calculation where you're bringing in somebody as an employee into the business, have a think about employer's NIC. Is that going to be something that there will be a cost to that? So actually we end up with a loss, a trading loss now of £32,000 if we bring Laurie in as an employee. What's Laurie going to get? Loss for Laurie, just for completeness, to actually answer exactly what's been asked, is 0, because Laurie's an employee, not a part of the business, not an owner of the business. There's no explanation needed, so we don't have to explain why the NIC is 0. We don't have to explain why Laurie doesn't get any tradable loss, allowable trading loss rather. But we need to make sure we're writing it down so our marker can go yes, half, half, half. Yep. So there was 2.5 marks actually available there for these components. So actually you could get almost full marks by just dealing with Laurie as an employee, but we were asked about bringing Laurie in as a partner as well. So we have our £20,000 trading loss. We don't have a salary to pay out because we're told, if we go back to where the information is about if they bring them on as a business partner, they will just share profits and losses, 75% to Meg, 25% to Laurie. So we just need to work out how much of the trading loss will each of them get. And we use that profit sharing ratio because it's also a loss sharing ratio. So there's my answer. Meg's going to get 15,000. Laurie's going to get 5,000. We weren't asked to explain, we weren't asked to state, we weren't asked to advise, we were just asked to calculate. The numbers are there for the marker. That's all you have to do. The marker knows exactly what they're looking for. They can follow what you've done. I've used headings just to make it easier for them. I've mentioned Meg and Laurie twice. And therefore, if I go back and read the question one more time, calculate the allowable trading loss available to each of Meg and Laurie. So that means you have to consider Meg, then Laurie, consider them separately for the tax year if Laurie becomes an employee or becomes a partner. So under each of the headings, employee and partner, I've dealt with Meg, I've dealt with Laurie, I've dealt with Meg, dealt with Laurie. So do you see how I've broken the question down? Do you see how that links back to my initial plan? And that plan came from my reading of the requirement. I just pulled out the key things that I have to do. I noticed where they say or, I noticed where they say and. And the more you do this, the easier it gets, I promise you. And do you see how my answer now? It's much easier for me to look at a 3-mark question and go, I know where those 3 marks are coming from. I know that I'm going to split that, say 1.5 marks each. There's probably more marks available, but 1.5 marks each. I'm looking for 3 things. Say each thing's worth half a mark. 3 things under each heading. So even though the weighting is slightly different in the actual marking schedule, there was 2.5 marks available for dealing with Laurie as an employee and 1 mark available for dealing as Laurie as a partner. You're not going to know that in the exam. You don't know what the exact marking schedule looks like, the breakdown. But having a plan helps you to start filling out the gaps and helps you manage the number of marks. So often I see students and they'll write something and then you go, well, it's 8 marks. I can immediately look at your answer and know that you haven't got most of the marks because you just can't have because you haven't written enough. And so you need to start thinking about the mark allocation and using that to help you plan out your answer to maximise. And can you see, none of this was particularly difficult. Some students would definitely miss out the employer NIC, I'm sure of it. That's half a mark though. Some people might not have mentioned Laurie, getting none of the loss there, but if you had planned out your answer and read that requirement really carefully, you would know I've got to talk about Laurie, even though the answer is 0, I still have to mention it. But I don't need to explain why, and you wouldn't have wasted any time writing big paragraphs of information because you would have spotted it only asked you to calculate. Okay, so this is what I need you to start doing in your answers and planning this way. And you'll see that this was all assumed knowledge from TX. None of this is new stuff that you've learned at ATX. This is what the examiner thinks is easy marks, so you need to make sure you're picking up the easy marks. Okay, so hopefully you got most of those marks. If you found this one a little bit difficult to know how to attack it, or you only actually ended up doing half of it, go back and try it again yourself now with this structure in mind. I hope you found this video useful. Please hit like and don't forget to subscribe. If you've only looked at one requirement so far, please do check out the videos for the other requirements. Let me know in the comments if you've got any questions on these areas.